You know, it's amazing. When you look at the type of people who look at Buddhism, they are normally fairly creative, sometimes a little independent, often a little ornery. That's a joke. But it's true though, isn't it? People that have strong wills, they understand, they know what they're doing. And I think some of that comes from not taking what they see and hear on face value. You know, just being able to look and do a little self-investigation, and maybe investigation of whatever faith that you came from also. What is your name in the back?
Cody.
Cody. Now Cody was here last week, right?
First time.
Is this your first time?
Yes.
You know, didn't we have a Cody last week? Somebody say yes, Bhante.
Sure.
Gotta help the preacher now. This is the South.
I'm not allowed to lie.
It's but what we do try to do is we try to give you the fundamentals of meditation so that you can. And see, Cody didn't raise his hand either. He was shy in the back. That's okay to be shy. I'm shy. I'm shy when I'm not with people. I suspend that when I get around a group. Most of you should have a sheet in front of you. We ran off some new ones, and it has an opening that we use to sort of clear the air and set us up for meditation. The reason why that's important, we'll get to that in a few minutes, but you have to develop a practice. Meditation is a practice. So you want to develop that practice. And we do that by always starting off the same way with one of these. So let's do that. The words are Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. It's not that difficult. It's very, very simple. All those sounds are found in English. So everybody, once you just put those sounds together in words, they're very simple, and you'll be surprised how good you sound. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. That was actually quite wonderful, wasn't it? Do you feel it? It's because it's coming off the walls. We're not magic. It's a nice sound, right? But it does have a curative power. A lot of the monks in Thailand and Sri Lanka, different places around the world, when the Theravada monks chant, that chanting has a restorative nature. The way the words are put together, because the language itself, you know that phrase, Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. You could say Sama Sambuddhassa Araho Bhagava. You could say in any direction, it's all the same. It's not really like English where we have to put modifiers before or after. Pali is basically a language that's put together for the tone, so to speak. So when the person wrote that out, Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa, there's a rhythm and a sound that goes there. Let us read this together. We vow to offer peace to one another and to practice mindfulness in our breathing, smiling, looking deeply into ourselves. We will strive to be compassionate towards all living beings and mindful of their sufferings. We will try to live with joy in our hearts and practice letting go of worries and anxieties so we may be free. May the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha support us on our journey and meditations. Does anybody know what the Dhamma is? or what Sangha is. Somebody that I never call. What is Dhamma?
Life force.
It's the teachings. Right? And what is Sangha?
The community of monks and nuns.
The community of monks and nuns. She said community of monks and nuns. That's right. The Buddha on a line, the Buddha, and then Dhamma, and then Sangha. Sangha would be what I am. I represent the Sangha. So we try to do that. Okay. What I wanted to talk to you about is there's something called hindrances. And hindrances are those factors which come into your meditation and they hinder you. Right? They're not helpers, they're hindrances. Some of those things, if you think about the mind, deeply buried in your mind is there's a subconscious level. Everything that comes into your mind, in the present mind, is born in the subconscious. Okay? So when something happens to you, someone says something to you, maybe it makes you angry. Some of us can take a look at that little space between when whatever feeling arises from the subconscious and then the feeling that exists when it happens. There is a little time frame. That little time frame exists to tell you that there's something coming. Right? So you don't get mad immediately. It feels like it, but you don't get mad immediately, because when someone says something, that subconscious anger comes up very quickly. It's only a moment, but it happens. So between that moment of recognition and that moment of non-anger, that tiny little space, and you know, Buddhism is all about the space. It really is. The space between thoughts when you're meditating, the space that you occupy when you sit in meditation, the space that you choose when you go home to choose for your space, for your meditative space. It's all about the space. It's kind of like location, 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 right? Isn't it? And how many times have you heard that? And we're not selling anything. We offer it. We put it out there. The mind perceives, for instance, beautiful things as beautiful because it compares it to something that you already know. The shades of colors that you have. When you look at something, you say, either it's beautiful or it's not beautiful. And what Buddhism tries to teach you is that you can be attached to beauty as much as anger, as much as joy, as much as sorrow. All of those things are generated out of the subconscious into the conscious mind, where you decide whether or not you're going to hold on to it or not. Right? It happens all the time. When you see, especially guys, take a guy that's 25 years old. What is he looking at all the time? The shape, the color, cars. I'm talking about cars. The shape of the car, the wheels, the color, the flash. You know, it's a Mustang, it's a convertible, it's whatever. And what is he, all the time, that thought comes up, and what does he obsess about? Someday I'm going to have enough money to buy that car. So that thought comes over and over and over and over and over and over again. But originally, before that car came up, that thought rested where? In the subconscious. It didn't come out until what happened? He perceived something. So if you look at when you see something as a possible hindrance, it takes a little bit different look. It's a little bit different understanding. The idea that an idea comes in and you sit there and you look, and if you don't attach anything to it and you let it pass, you're practicing mindfulness. Mindfulness is the most important thing that you can practice. And meditation is the space where mindfulness is practiced. Mindfulness is that practice which you yourself look at everything that happens to you. And you don't look at whether it's a hindrance or help or anything. You just allow it to come. One of the things the Buddha tried to teach was skillful and unskillful. If you're sitting in meditation and your mind wanders, how many of us, our mind wanders? How many of you sat and meditated and all of a sudden your mind just goes, exit stage left? It happens all the time. Why does it happen? It's the nature of our minds. Our minds always do that. So what we're trying to do in a class like this is we are trying to take the time to learn, not so much control, but to recognize what can take us away from the meditation and what keeps us there. If each week you come and you sit or you practice at home and you sit there for 5 or 6 or 7, 8, 10 minutes and you never get to that little space, how do you feel? You get frustrated, right? You feel frustrated because I can't even sit for 10 minutes. I can't sit 10 minutes and be quiet and my mind is still. It's because you're trying to teach it without any tools. So what you do is you practice mindfulness by allowing your mind to go to those places, allow it to pick up those ideas, because they're going to come anyway. So as an idea comes in, you look at it for a few moments, and you decide what it is, look at it, and then let it go. It's sort of like an identification. Once you hear a sound comes. Once you identify the sound, you don't hear it anymore. It's true. If you live near a railroad track and the train comes through at 8:05 every evening, right in the middle of the news, when you first move there, is this going to be every night? And now somebody comes over and they visit you, and they're watching TV, and the train goes through and you go, you don't even hear the train because you're not paying attention to it. We throw out 95% of all the sensory input that we have. Why? Because we've trained ourselves not to become overloaded by every single thought that comes in. A lot of people that have trouble or problems in their daily life are those people that can't tell the difference between reality and non-reality. Just like your brain. When you have a memory and you react to it viscerally, your body reacts. It does not know whether you are experiencing this for the first time or whether this is a memory. And they proved that when they did operations on the mind. A person sat there and they took a diode or electrode, which one would it be, electrode? And they touched certain cell memories, areas in the brain, and they said, where are you? Said, I'm in Paris. Oh, I can smell everything. And then you ask the person, are they in Paris or is it a memory? They can't tell you. They don't know because the memory is so strong. Last week we talked a little bit about anger or joy or all those feelings that come up when you sit and you remember things. Just remember, before you sat, all those things sat in your subconscious. Especially fear. Fear is one of the biggest detriments to us being mindful and being calm, because we have fear and we don't know where it comes from. And if that ever happens during your meditation, you can open your eye and see that you're sitting here on a nice carpet, sitting on a nice comfortable cushion in a room that's fairly cool, and there's some funny looking old guy up in the front, and he's not going to hurt you, right? So you don't have fear. You can let the fear go. And you do that with everything, with all the thoughts, not just fear. But what happens if you're sitting here, you're into your meditation 4 or 5 minutes, and all of a sudden you have this rush of joy? You're going to look for why that joy showed up. You're going to look for that. And it may be wonderful, but it's not meditation. And it's not being mindful. Our mindfulness stirs from our ability to see. When you ask the Buddha what Buddha means or what Buddhism means, he says it means awaken. It means I see you. I'm aware of what's happening. I can feel things, see things. Awareness. Awareness is mindfulness. And that's part of what you're trying to accomplish, and the gift that you're giving yourself. When you come and sit, you're sitting, you're learning how to free yourself. One of the gentlemen who came here during, I think it wasn't a canteen, it was a New Year celebration. He said, I heard you speak, and I've been thinking about it for 3 months. And I said, really? And I said, what did I say? He said, you said following the Buddhist path is not looking at extremism on either side, but it's following the middle way. And the path is wide enough to accept everyone. And Buddhism means freedom. So that's what we're trying to get. That's what we're trying to get you to experience, is that you can be free from the bad thoughts, from the evil thoughts, and try to become a good person. You know, the idea of becoming good is not difficult. It just means repeating good behavior over and over and over again. And we don't even need to discuss where goodness comes from, because it comes from you. Your goodness comes from you. It was learned. It's a learned behavior. All of your life you've heard goodness comes from God. And I'm not going to dispute that, because I'm just a human being, a simple monk. But I will tell you this. I know why I'm good. And it's because I learned from my mom. My mother was the one who raised us. I have 6 younger brothers and sisters. And all of us are different. Totally different. And I've had friends in my life that I have had for all of my life. And they still are around, still hang around. Not just physically alive, because now they're all in their 60s, right? But when you practice goodness and you practice what comes from your mind, it's easier to become good if you practice being good. A lot of you know that I go over to the prison system, to the federal prison, and talk about some hindrances. What kind of hindrances would you have in a federal institution to keep you from practicing your meditation? You live by the bell, by someone else's tone, by the gate, by the slamming of a door. All of those things. All of those things. But all of us have those type of things in our lives. Hindrances are nothing more than something trying to pull you away from that which you desire. And you can't want it too strongly, because that's another type of attachment. So, the guys that are sitting over there in the Correctional Institute, I asked one time, and I usually didn't do that, why he was there. And he told me he robbed banks. I said, but why are you in here? And he said, I got caught. I got caught, he said. And I asked him, that's the reason you're here, is because you got caught. And he said, well, that's what happened. I said, what happened before that last job? He said, I robbed 7 banks. And I asked him, how hard was it to rob the first bank? He said, he almost wet himself, because it was so difficult. So difficult to do that bad deed. So difficult, because he wasn't used to doing it. But he gave birth to that idea. He worked it out with his friends. He robbed that bank. And the second time, he said, was just as difficult as the first. But each time he robbed a bank, he became less hindered in doing what was wrong, because he had built and started to build a habit of doing wrong. And the sutra that we use every single Sunday, a prayer that we use, said, do good, become good. Do bad, become bad. There's nothing more simple than that. Do good, become good. What happened in the 7th bank, I asked him. He said, I got sloppy, and I got caught, and then I went to prison. And I said, you don't think that robbing the banks were the reason why you were here? And he said, well, yeah, kind of. But I really did get caught. I said, I know you got caught. You're here. What we need to think about is what hindrances exist for us. And you can read a Buddhist book and come up with all kinds of hindrances. But the hindrances that exist for us are those things that pull us away from what we're trying to do. That's a hindrance. When you're sitting quiet and you're listening to yourself and you're watching yourself pulling away a little bit, it's not a subjective activity. It's objective. It's you sitting quietly, but when you close your eyes, try to remove yourself from here and look at yourself. And try to remember the things that come up into your brain. And if something comes in that really bothers you, look at it. And if it comes back many, many, many times, find out where it's coming from. Take the time to investigate. Investigate where that thought is coming from. Because it is resting in the subconscious up near the top, that if every time you're sitting quietly, that thought is there. And if it's something you don't want to do, realize it as being a hindrance and look at it and let it go. And if it keeps coming back and keeps coming back, try to discover for yourself where that thought could have originated, where that thought is coming from. Hindrances cannot arise when mindfulness is present. When you're being mindful, the hindrance will not be there because mindfulness is very strong. So look at yourself. Look at who you are. Be happy with who you are. When you do bad things, you're doing them to yourself. If you really love yourself, seriously love yourself, pat yourself on the back when you do something right. Really love who you are. You can accomplish wonderful things. But moreover, you will realize your connection, not just to you, and your memories and your thoughts, and all the ideas that come from you, that your heart becomes touched by your own goodness. And then you start to see what happens with all the people around you. And you touch people's lives. You touch people's lives. That's your goal. Your goal is to become good, to do good things, to practice good things, to love yourself, and realize that if you really loved yourself, you would never bring harm to yourself. And by not bringing harm to you, you have a connection to everyone else in this room, and everyone else in your family, and all the people that live everywhere. We are all connected. That area that you call the subconscious, we're all there. We're all there. All of us. That space exists. Remember I told you, it's all about the space. So do good things and think good thoughts. There are ways that you can, when you feel a bad thought coming, you can take a look at it and let it go. It's a good thought. It's a good thing to do. Realize we're only human. But your connection to everyone is the reason why we're here. To self-perfect. To be the best possible person you can be. We should have a slogan like the Army. Right? Be all you can be. That is the Army, right? Is the army that is it? Is it? Oh, is it? Well, they didn't have it first. Right? Self-perfection. The reason, each church tries to do well. Every church, every faith tries to do well. Usually, you hear in Christianity the reason for us to be here is to bring glory and honor to God. But the Buddha said the reason for you to be here is to self-perfect, to be the most perfect person you can be. Because we don't live in the realm of gods. We live here on earth. So your connection has to be with people who you're like. And the reason why Buddhism makes so much sense, because Buddha's not a god. What he did, what he said, what he practiced, what he preached for 45 years was, you can be good. Simple, simple message. You can be good. And if you work at it, you will be good. And the reason for goodness is not because you're going to hell, if you don't. It's not because you're going to send babies to limbo. It has nothing to do with anything like that. The reason for doing good is it is its own reason. Because as you do good, you grow in goodness, and you become a better person. And your life is less and less threatened by the evil that's around you. So you practice being skillful and not skillful. Right? Tell yourself, if you do something wrong, I understand it. It is not a skillful motion, not a skillful idea, not a skillful understanding, not a skillful action. And make those actions, thoughts, understandings, speech skillful. Do away with the hindrances that keep you doing things you don't want to do. Sounds easy. It's like the monk that told me, he said, how do I become a better Buddhist? He said, the question should be, how do you become a better person? And I said, okay, how do I become a better person? He said, love yourself. The same thing I tell all of you, love yourself. Accept yourself for all of your faults. Agree that the faults that you have, that you think, that you say, that the actions are unskillful. Unskillful. And then rethink them so that the ideas and your understanding of the ideas and your thoughts and the speech and the action that follows your first understanding are right. Righteous. Because you're good and you want to continue that goodness. Because you want your actions to be skillful and not non-skillful. You can't avoid hindrances. They're going to be there all the time. Mindfulness grows by the exercise of being mindful. Regret is a conditioned reflex action. Much like when you reach out and touch something and you draw your hand back because it's hot. It's learned. Regret is also learned. What we're trying to do is live life without regret. How good could it be if you never regretted anything that you did? If you were always skillful in your understanding, in your thoughts, in your speech, in your action. That's all I'm going to ask you to do. Just be skillful. Think about things. Be mindful. Don't give in to distractions. Give them a little bit of attention and watch them fade away. Just like all the bad things that you've done in your life. Look at them, understand it was unskillful, and allow them to pass so you don't have to repeat them. So you don't have to live life with regrets. So you don't have to pay attention to hindrances as they come. Then